CUST Corner, it's CUST Corner. CUST Corner, it's CUST Corner. He's got the hottest takes with the highest stakes. He should be president of the United States, but it's CUST Corner, it's CUST Corner. CUST Corner, hee 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 hee.
We can just call it the corner. Top Cat Corner.
It's called CUST Corner. We have like intro graphics and everything. And a song that a viewer made, Tim. You should feel special.
Yeah, well, if that were the first song that was ever made in my honor, perhaps, but it isn't.
It's true. Garion Thorne is here as well, as if you heard him on the line. That is Tim Andercust!
Tim Andercust.
Not my name.
Yeah, well, it is. It has a song and everything. That's why it's called CUST Corner, and that's why it is your name. If it has musical accompaniment, it's real.
I was playing that song at a Walmart when it was first made, and there was like an old homeless woman who was dancing to it. I think it brightened her day.
Ah.
Yeah.
But listen, the song, I attribute Tim's popularity to the song. People love the song. I love the song.
This is not even really that much of a lie. I think it's pretty true, but I met you like 7 years ago at this point. I don't even think you really said, "Hi, my name is Pat." You just said, "Hey, watch this." And it was just the Tim Andercust song. And I was like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, because at one point there was like what's the name of that song? Duck Sauce? Well, it's called Barbra Streisand.
Duck Soup.
It's called Barbra Streisand.
Yeah, but it's by Duck Soup.
But there was like a generator where you could put in anything that you wanted into it and it would say that, then do the thing. And then, boom, it was born.
It is. With some terrible Habs graphics and Jets graphics. And
yeah, which you can still find on the internet if you search Tim Andercust.
Please don't do that.
Okay. Here's the thing. Here's how CUST Corner works. We're 5 episodes in. You probably know about this already. Tim has a list of grievances, because despite the fact that he just turned 30, he is a 90-year-old man, and he doesn't quite understand how the world works, and stuff bothers him. So this is the place where Tim can vent and solve the world's problems. Tim, you're up. What do you got?
Well, I have, as usual, a list of grievances or irritations, and we can pick some or any or all of these.
Well, you just start with your favorite.
Well, I mean, I don't have a favorite. They're all annoying to me. I'll go through them, and then you can decide.
Go chronologically, then.
All right. Well, I mean, I have my whole agitation with these new pop machines. I have these stupid spoons and the whole millennial culture. I've got Notre Dame playing at noon. I've got my problems with Kong Skull Island that I've recently watched. I have this Flat Earth Twitter account that I'm obsessed with following. I'm upset about Sears closing all kinds of stores. Which one would you like to talk about?
The thing is, I know where your stance on most of these, but I want to start with spoons.
Yeah, I thought I misheard that for a second.
Please tell me about spoons.
So there's a few places, particularly this one place in Melbourne, which is in Australia.
Thanks.
Which have been marked. Not everybody. There's a Melbourne,
Geography,
Florida.
prof.
There's a Melbourne, Florida. So people could have thought I meant that.
Well, if I thought about that, I just assumed everyone was doing bath salts out of their spoons.
There's this new trend of boutique shops selling spoonfuls of Nutella. Spoonfuls of peanut butter.
Do you just want to talk about the Tick cartoon instead?
We could talk about your cold spoon theory if you'd rather.
Listen, I'll dish the advice on cold spoons later on in the episode, maybe at the end of this. You remind me, okay?
Okay, I'll write that down. Cold spoons. Yeah, so there's this whole niche market of snacks. It's from the same sorts of people that brought you those stupid cake pop thingies. That people pay like $5 for a spoonful of Nutella mixed with nuts, or a spoonful of peanut butter with caramel on it. And this is all part and parcel of this sort of millennial culture where people are wasting their money on stupid things rather than just, if you want to eat Nutella, spend $7 and buy a jar. But of course, you've got these unicycle riding millennials who like to tell everybody that, oh no, this is really the best way to enjoy Nutella. This is really the best way to enjoy these snacks is through artisanal spoons. And it got me worked up about this article in the New York Times yesterday, which said that, the best ice cream you can actually have is the ice cream that you make yourself in an ice cream maker. I was just seething. I was so angry when I read that.
No
it's all
bigger
part of
corporate
the
show
same
than Tim.
problem. This idea that the only way you can really experience the best type of something is if you have one of these expensive, fancy ice cream makers you can take to your house. that if you're not, rich enough to provide your family with an ice cream maker, I guess you have to slum it and go to Dairy Queen or go to, some other ice cream parlor, or God forbid, buy one at a supermarket because you can't give your family the best things in life, even though supermarket ice cream or Dairy Queen ice cream is delicious and tasty, and you can bring your family there and you can get them a treat. But of course, that's not good enough. You have to be authentic and make your own and absolutely grind it up with rock salt. This is all a problem, and it needs to stop.
Now, do you want to give people some backstory to your Dairy Queen love?
No, well, I mean, there was a time, many, many pounds ago, when
There was a time when Les Wizard only had 2 logos to choose from. But no,
like
you used to love yourself
buried in stories here.
You loved yourself a Blizzard back in the day.
I would have a Blizzard just about every single day. And I had to square those off, and I haven't had a Blizzard in like 7 or 8 years. I just can't touch the stuff anymore because I feel like I have one, I'll be hooked again.
I love a good Blizzard. Plus,
They're
just
amazing.
left
They are
Pittsburgh.
better than the custardy homemade ice cream which is only the best kind, right? Because a working class father or mother who works hard and saves up just enough money to buy their kids an ice cream cone from Dairy Queen, they might as well they're depriving their child of the best things in life by not buying some artisanal ice cream maker from some millennial with his twisty mustache.
In his unicycle.
And his unicycle or his penny farthing bike.
In real life, not the internet, Tim. In real life, how many people have you actually ever seen riding a unicycle?
3. I remember every time I saw it too. It annoyed me to no end. And not like a circus. I mean, like out in real life.
To be fair, though, let's say you bought one of these artisanal Nutella caramel spoons. If it's a nice, piece of, metal, if it's a good spoon, wouldn't that double your spoon?
You don't. Okay, first, stop it. Secondly, you don't get to keep the spoon. It's like going to a coffee. It's like going to a coffee store like Tim Hortons and getting the cup, like getting the coffee in the store, and they give you the mug, the ceramic mug. You don't take the mug with you unless you're a thief.
Okay.
Fair. I just...
Why? Okay, this really comes at odds, I feel like, with your overall philosophy. Tim is basically Adam Smith Jr. He has invisible hands. That's why he has all the touching. Mm-hmm. But I kid about that with Tim. Not with Adam Smith, though. Why do you care that these businesses are selling if I opened a business and I could get away with selling $5 spoons at Nutzilla, I would do it.
Listen, there's nothing illegal about it, and I'm not saying that the government should shut these down. But I'm saying that they are contemptible stores. And the types of this is what's wrong with millennial culture.
Tim, the free market is all about ripping off morons. If morons want to pay $5.50 for a spoonful of peanut butter chocolate, screw them.
Well, that's it. But, the problem is our culture and our age range are filled with people who aren't able to save for, a home, unable to save for, retirement. They're too busy going to the club 2 nights a week and spending copious amounts of money and then treating themselves to spoonfuls of Nutella.
I think these things are a little sort of offset by the extreme ends of the spectrum.
You're thinking the vision that you have in your mind about millennials and what millennials do is based off this theory that every millennial in the world lives in a very concentrated part of Brooklyn or some giant city that really only spans 6 blocks where this sort of behavior that you see on the internet that goes on. Most millennials are just like everyone else from every range. They're just working 16 hours a day to try to pay the bills.
I don't think that's true. I think there's
it's
a
100%
genuine difference
true.
between people who are people of our age 20 or 30 years ago compared to how we act now.
Yeah,
I think we are
20 or 30 years ago, the jobs that the millennials have now actually paid something.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to there was a really good op-ed piece. I think it was in the New York Times a couple weeks back, sort of as a response to that avocado bread
Fake news.
Fair. And it was just saying, and again, I think Pat is accurate in saying that I've never had a piece of avocado toast in my life. I've never even seen one of these spoons. And I'm 25, so I feel like I really fit in that millennial tier.
You're 25, you work in media, and you live in a hipster part of downtown Toronto, one of the most international cities there is. There's a lot of hipsters and that sort of thing around here. I feel like you would be the perfect base for this.
And I would say that the sort of the thesis statement of this op-ed piece was essentially that Food is the one area where millennials, where we're in mountains and mountains and mountains of debt from like going to school, and where housing costs and housing prices are so high right now where we almost go into these situations realizing we can't even afford to buy a house. So why don't we try to get some level of luxury? We spend on things that are obtainable levels of luxury, like a piece of toast that costs $17. It's stupid, but at the very least I can understand that thought process behind it. But I would still say, again, very few people I know live their lives like this.
I don't know any.
Yeah, like I feel
and
like...
I'm in this age range, and these are the people that I know.
And I would even say that most
all
of the people who are 25, 30 now, I think there's been a noticeable change in like the mentality of a 25 to 30-year-old from now to like 20 years ago. Like I think especially people in urban areas, you know, are pretty inclined to like put their life on pause and go after their own career goals and things like that. But I know a bunch of 25-year-old people who have 3-year-old kids. They just don't happen to live in the city. And they've got their whole other list of concerns that don't involve eating things off a spoon for $7.
Well, of course, that's right. But I just think millennials are proving the thesis of sort of late-stage decadence of our society. That, like, you know, when Francis Fukuyama talks about the last man and the end of history, like, I think we are that buying Nutella off spoons is, you know, emblematic of last manism.
I feel like you're just really taking a headline and thinking it applies to everyone when it probably applies to 0.000000000.
I think it applies to a lot more people than you think.
No, I really don't. I think you're vastly overestimating how many people this actually applies to.
never
Walking
seen one of
around in
these
their
spoons.
plaid shirts and their hemp belts, you know.
Hemp belts? Like,
That's
have
what
you
the
ever...
kids are wearing.
The type of people that you're talking about, that you proclaim exist everywhere, have you actually ever seen one of these people out in the
Yeah,
streets?
there are a couple of neighborhoods around that I've seen these people drive around on their penny farthing bikes, or, you know, go to a chain restaurant, not because they want to go there, but because it's really ironic that they're going to go to Chili's or something.
I mean, look, I'll say that I think these types
people
of
are
people are
awful,
far
by the
more
way.
prevalent
Animals
in
should drop
places
upon
like Toronto, but like you're from Nova Scotia.
Yep.
How often do you see these types of people in places that Tim actually inhabits?
Oh, never.
Never.
Like, there is a probably 1 block radius with, like,
That's true.
local coffee shops in Halifax, and they have, like, the 16 of them in the city all congregate right there.
And I'm more agitated about, the people who are living in, like, the Kensington areas of Toronto and, you know, Brooklyn and Vancouver and the East End and West End and, you know,
But that's where they're all
Montreal.
congregated. It's okay. They've chosen to live in those areas.
In fairness, I went to Kensington Market is a kind of hippy-dippy place in...
Restaurants, bars, yeah.
Like,
sort
I
of.
went there last night after I left the office with my future wife, and we just went to a whole bunch of restaurants. We went to, like, 4 different restaurants, had, like, 4 different appetizers, had a few beer. It's a fun place
It's
to
a nice-
go.
you can bar hop.
You
It's
can
a
also
nice
go to
little
the
area.
Where
Hot
people
Box
probably look
Cafe.
down their noses at you if you live on the wrong side of Dufferin Street.
Dufferin.
Dufferin.
I think I live on the wrong side of Dufferin, in Tim's opinion.
Well, this is becoming very Toronto localized.
Yes, it is.
But, I mean, I feel like this sort of... What you're saying, Tim, it exists in every big city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
But you're so consumed with what's cool and what's not cool and how it appears to people that this actually matters to you. It doesn't matter to me. Garion, you have your hand raised.
I would like to point out the irony that Tim is so focused on the small demographics of urban areas, he is much like Hillary Clinton, forgetting about middle America, and therefore going to lose the upcoming election. You're Hillary Clintoning right now, Tim.
It won't be my fault, though. You can be sure of that.
You'll
There you
blame
go.
everyone.
Are you going to go to the
I'll
woods?
take responsibility for it, but of course I won't take responsibility for any of the reasons I lost.
If you had to spend an hour in a room with 5 Hillary Clintons or an hour in a room with 5 millennials riding unicycles,
eating
Eating
spoonfuls of nutzilla.
spoon, which would you pick?
Oh, God. I guess Mrs. Clinton, because she could give me tips on how to shake down people for money.
Shake down the millennials. I mean, you could learn that too from hanging out with the millennials and their $5 spoons of Nutella.
Just, these are the kids that go to the bar 2 nights a week. Like 30 years ago, people didn't do that.
What are you
They
talking
saved.
about? I was in college. When were we in college? 10 years
10
ago?
years ago.
12 years ago. From a period of 2004 to 2008, I was at the bar 5 nights a week.
Yes, but I think that was not common 30 years ago or 35 years ago.
People like-
were saving for, retirement, or they're saving for a down payment for a house, because these people are like, oh, it's too expensive to live in Toronto. Well, then get out of Toronto and move somewhere where you can have a house and a picket fence and a lawn. You don't have to congregate at
Not
Kensington
Hank Hill. I don't
Market or
need a lawn.
Brooklyn, New York.
Do you know
leave there, leave the cities, which are just vapid wastelands most of the time anyway. Go to the real part of the country where you're not surrounded by nonsensical cosmopolitan social city living. It angers me so much.
Tim would like everyone to move to 1954.
But Tim, you
know, I
realize
think
if all these
suburbs
people
are a better
leave
way to
Toronto,
live, or
they'll be
having
coming
a country
closer to
estate or
you.
something.
What?
Having a country estate or living out in the country or in suburbs, I think it's a better way to live.
Having a country estate. Yeah, you're right, Tim. Having a country estate would be the way
You know
to
what I
live.
mean? Like having a nice big house on a good plot of land, somewhere that's relatively unpopulated, where it's a lot cheaper, and you can sort of live a more. We talk about millennials living in real authentic
Picturing
living,
Tim
like that's
wearing a hat,
actual
like
authentic.
farming his own vegetables.
Tim is like
Yeah,
the
like
most
having your own
incompetent
bean field.
person alive. He would kill all the animals after he bought them. He'd hammer his hand off trying to put up a fence. Like, it's funny because the lifestyle that you glorify and that you want to live, you could never sustain yourself
You would
doing
I
hate
think I
small
could.
towns because you couldn't go to the established chains that you love because they don't exist in these areas.
Yes, they do. They live in suburbia, though.
Okay. Here's one of the problems against your thesis of everyone should move outside of cities. Because of technology and the shrinking down of the globalized market, a lot of these jobs that used to exist in the suburbs and out in the country, even 25 years ago, simply are not there anymore. The jobs for everyone, that's why you see the migration to the bigger cities. The suburban sprawl of these giant places getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the only jobs that exist across the spectrum for everything exist in the cities. That's why people live here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that point. But everything has its natural breaking point. At some point, the cities become too crowded and living becomes too expensive that
Just
people
spoon
simply
for the
cannot live there
breaking point.
anymore. Like there are natural breaking points to this, and some of these cities have become overpopulated. And in fact, urbanization is reducing in some of the major cities, and because suburbia is growing again, and exurbia is growing.
What I mean, it's
Who
all
in the
good.
name of God wants to live, down on Front Street or living, somewhere in Brooklyn? I don't know.
I
Why do
do.
you pronounce places so weird?
Because he grew up in Houston. That's why. Or Los Angeles.
I've never been to those places.
I have.
They're airports.
I mean, the place where you just described where you want to live, that's where I want to live.
I don't think as a person wants to. I think the idea.
What do you mean
of
you
living
don't
there
think a
is far
person
more
wants it?
alluring
I
than
just
living
told you that's what I want and that's where I live.
there. I think it would be better to live somewhere quiet in the country.
Why? I
Because
hate quietness. I hate the country. I like being in the middle of a big city. I much prefer that.
Yeah, I don't want to
You
make this
work
too
in the big
Toronto
city, but
specific
then
again, but
retire
Pat has a
to a
very
nice home
restrictive
outside of the city.
set of streets. He will not leave this box in the heart of the center of the city. Just won't happen.
what-
And then you had to go to Orno that one time, and every time I passed through Orno, it's a town so small and shitty that they literally, I don't think they do this anymore because I think it went out of business, but they used to have to put the main attraction of their town under their sign. It was like, welcome to Orno. We have an IGA. It's like,
An IGA.
good for you.
IGA. Is IGA still in business?
No, went out of business.
When my
Of course, unless you're going to Whole Foods, you're not really even grocery shopping.
what are you
right?
talking about? You know nothing. You're like Jon Snow. You know nothing.
That's what all the millennials are. Hip millennials are. See on
The millennials can't afford to shop at Whole Foods, Tim.
They can't afford a lot of things, but they do it anyway.
No, they don't, because whatever cartoon version of a millennial you have in your head or that you read about in fake news internet doesn't exist. You're a millennial. Most millennials are like you,
Well, I like. to
except they're
think
not
I am a bit of
fancy
the-
academics who teach at colleges.
I like
Wear
to think.
top hats
I
all the
look
time.
on Twitter and on the internet all the time, and I'm seeing all these people wearing their winter caps indoors, and wearing their their
Because they
checkered
can't afford
shirts and
heat.
their- What?
They can't afford to eat.
Yeah, they can't afford it because they're too busy going out to the bars and buying Nutella on spoons.
This is so ridiculous. Cold spoons. Before we move off of spoons.
Yes, I had that. Yeah, please tell the people about cold spoons.
Now, I don't think... Can you explain your version of it? Because I'll explain my version of it because I'm the one who does it. But you saw this... Well, you saw it firsthand, me doing it back in the day. Can you explain what the cold spoons is?
Me?
Yeah.
It's a process by which you can get you take some regular old spoons, you put them in the freezer so that they're ice cold, obviously. Then you press them underneath your eyelids to remove bags underneath your eyes.
Yes. That's exactly what it is.
Pretty cut and dry.
So what it does is, when you have bags underneath your eyes, that means the blood circulation isn't flowing the way it should be. That causes the darkness underneath your eyes. When you apply extreme cold to it, it speeds them up. It's sort of like the really ghetto version of like that knee surgery that like Kobe got, where they take out like good blood cells and like put them in a centrifuge.
Don't even have to go to Germany.
And you inject them in. So, I mean, I'm someone who appears on camera a lot, so I don't like to have gigantic bags underneath my eyes.
Yeah, but you were doing this well before you were ever on camera.
Yeah, well, I never liked having bags underneath my eyes. But I am predisposed to having terrible bags underneath my eyes at all times. Now, back when Tim first met me, I was staying up till like 5 o'clock in the morning and waking up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon every day. Also conducive to having a lot of bags underneath your eyes. But it's a process that works. I don't see why it's so weird.
It's just I've never seen or heard of anyone ever doing it before. That's all.
Patent pending.
It's uncustomary. I'm not saying it's bad. It was just unusual.
Okay. Anyway, that's cold spoons. Next topic. Let's talk about these pop machines.
Let's.
Oh, okay, that was getting me all wound. It's all part of a piece of millennial culture too.
Is that, you should just write a, you need to be like, what was that terrible book that came out they made the terrible show into?
Shit my dad says?
Shit my dad says. That's basically you.
I mean, let's talk about these new popper soda machines. I mean, they're more predominant in the United States than they are in Canada, but they've made their way into Canada. Carl's Jr.'s has them. Of course, now Subway quite famous.
Primarily at Subways and at movie theaters, I would say.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. You don't really make your own soda at the movie theater, at least not in my experience.
A
do it
couple
for
of the
you.
bigger cinemas in the city have
I
them.
don't like, if we're going to stick with the cold spoon things, I do have a trick for people that go to the movie cinemas. Tim, would you say this is a good trick?
Oh, this is
is
a
it
good
the
trick,
rail?
yeah.
Everyone I've showed this trick to falls in love with it. You never want the people at the movie theater putting butter on your popcorn.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because all they do is take your popcorn and just
Put it
put the
on
butter on top, and that's it. Here's what you need
They
to do.
charge
folks.
you to layer it now. You can get them to layer it, but they charge you an extra.
Yeah, but here's
extra, yeah.
you just get around that because most places have the butter you can just go put on near the napkins and straws and all that stuff. So you take your big bag of popcorn and you take a straw. You put the straw all the way down the middle of the popcorn bag. You then put it underneath like the little dinky thing that comes out with the butter and just pour the butter into the straw. Now you do that for about like 3 seconds and then you mush it around a little bit. Move the straw up about 3 inches. Repeat process all the way to the top of the bag. That way, you can layer your own butter, and thus, after you have the first handful of popcorn, you still have butter for your entire movie viewing experience.
Yeah, it's a genius move. I have nothing but nice things to say about it.
Pat Mayo, cold spoons, and popcorn. That's really all I know.
Yeah, because they wanted to charge me to butter my popcorn to the movies a couple of weeks ago. I was like, hey, you got your mind? There's free butter right there.
Isn't there some concern over the quality of the free butter though? Like, isn't that a
it's all
B-cell like
garbage.
butter as opposed to like an actual?
I'm at the
It's like
movies.
a margarine
It's all
butter is the
garbage.
free one, and like a butter is the one they give you.
Does it really matter?
No, not really.
Does it matter to you as a moviegoer
I will
and
say
popcorn
this:
consumer?
as someone who has definitely eaten his share of popcorn, I do feel like if we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the situation, the B-cell margarine-based butter is a little bit more liquidy than the butter, and it does sort of like sometimes mess with the like consistency of the popcorn. It makes it a little watery.
Now, what if
sometimes.
you were using parquet or I can't believe it's not butter?
Do they still make? I can't believe
I
it's not
don't
butter.
have no idea.
Oh, yes, they do.
Oh, Tim would know.
Because I buy it.
If they didn't have it, would you harass the grocery boy about where it is?
I would ask where it is and where it's gone to, yes. I mean, obviously, lots of people buy it. That's what, you know what? You're just trying to get me work.
Do you want to give your top 5 soda pops?
No. Before we
No.
do that, I got a text from Tim the other day that Tim Hortons increased their prices, and it took everything he had not to yell at the cashier.
Cam was very upset because KFC has also increased their prices
Yeah,
recently. As
I
he told
heard
me,
about
their 10-piece bucket went from $26.99 to $28.99, and they didn't think he would notice, but he noticed.
Of course he noticed.
Well, even like Toonie Tuesdays become such a damn scam these days. It used to be $2 back in the day. Now it's like $3.69.
Well, tell us about your frustration with Tim Hortons and their raised prices. Why is it?
Well,
why can't Tim Hortons raise their prices, Tim?
They can raise their prices, but I suspect this is just a cash grab.
Do you feel
I
like
don't think
the
this has anything to
money
do with
the
the
main
increased
corporation
price
has
of coffee. I
lost
think
by
it's
you
just
not
them
eating
trying
at
to shake me
Wendy's
down
has
for
now
more
been
money.
transferred into having to raise the prices at Tim Hortons?
Yeah, I never thought about that. Same company, Tim. You're not spending your money at Wendy's. They had to get your money somehow. Do you think?
Me alone is the reason. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
Wendy's.
well, they got to pay. Wendy's does have to pay for that.
Well, they had to give away so many
Narcissist to get
free
nuggets,
nugs. They got to
so-
make their money back somewhere.
That's right. They can't just have some 19-year-old son of the vice president of Wendy's who runs their Twitter account, doing that for free. They have to make their money up, I guess.
Well, I will say that the Wendy's Twitter account, the Wendy's
Top
entire social media platform is now sort of like the envy of all like big chain businesses. They do it right. They engage, they bring attention without ever having to spend any money on marketing. People are really jealous of how well the Wendy's marketing has worked. So, in your face, Tim.
I don't like it.
But that's probably for the best. Apparently things that you don't like, everyone else is in on.
I don't know if that's true. Do you want to talk about these machines?
Yeah, let's talk about these machines.
I feel like
for
everyone I
people
know
who
gets
don't
so pumped for a drink machine.
You can go to these various fast food restaurants, and when you get your pop, because nowadays it's almost impossible to order, unless you're at the drive-thru, to order your flavor. They just give you the cup and you fill it yourself.
Well, Tim, before you continue with this, you have to understand most of our viewers are American. Can you please say soda?
Well, pop is actually just as common in the United States as soda.
I don't think so.
I one time, I took a waitress aback. Like, it was like an aggressive term when I said pop. I was like, oh, do you mean soda?
It was like when I asked someone to lie down on their Chesterfield. They didn't know what I was talking about.
Pop is like it depends where you're like in Texas or whatever. Like pop's the term people use.
See, Tim knows that because he was once in Houston Airport.
No, but pop and soda and Coke are the three words that get used in different parts of the country. There's a whole map on this I've looked at before.
Oh, it was on the internet. It has to be true.
I actually believe it. It looks pretty sophisticated. It looks like the Midwest and parts of Texas, pop is common. In the New England, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, it's soda. And California, it's soda. So, what?
Continue, please.
So anyway, soda, pop, whatever, soda, pop, call it whatever you want. These new dispensers, not only can you get Coke, unfortunately, that's a whole other problem. At Subway, you can't get Coke, but Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, ginger ale, orange pop, whatever. You can now add flavors to it: cherry, vanilla, strawberry, and lemon. At least at Subway, and this just incenses me for a couple of reasons. One, these companies spend a lot of time and attention to perfect the right types of flavors that need to be added to pop so that people like them. Some amateur doesn't need to go in there and make swamp water for himself and decide he knows
Amateur.
That's sort of dumb. Secondly, it's all part of this millennial. When we were growing up, Coke was Coke, and we liked it that way. We didn't have to have a bunch of fancy flavors added in to keep things exciting for us because we get bored.
You were literally of the generation that spawned New Coke.
And people rejected it immediately. It was out for a year, and they went right back to the normal flavor because people like things.
It wasn't their normal flavor. That's Coca-Cola Classic. It's different.
Yeah, well, they don't call it that anymore. They got rid of the classic word. It was like that for a while, but then people forgot about it.
Why do you hate choices?
Yeah, why do you care? You don't have to use it.
You don't have to drink the weird ones.
But it's all part of this decadent culture that is just aggravating. That people just can't have normal pop on its own. They have to be very creative.
I take issue with the way that you're using the word normal, Tim. What's normal to you?
Having regular flavors of soda that are
regular, normal. Listen to these. These are going to cause microaggressions, Tim.
Well, okay, you know what? The people who enjoy strawberry, lemon, ginger ale, I'm sorry I've offended you. But actually, I'm not sorry. Because
the strawberry lemon element of this is new for me. Like, the Coke machines just kind of give you, like, your unlimited variety of things that, and you can put cherry in them, you can put vanilla in them, which are kind of like two very basic, I would feel like, pop
on their
elements.
own, yes. Together, it's just swamp water.
Let me ask you this. Who's drinking soda?
Lots of people.
I understand that, but shouldn't people be cutting this out?
It's probably the easiest thing to cut out from a diet, I would say.
A fair amount.
Yeah, it's really bad for you.
But
it's almost as bad as smoking.
There's lots of things that are bad for you. That doesn't have any bearing on the fact that it's incredibly popular.
I'm starting to worry about you. You're smoking, you're drinking sodas, you're eating fast food 8 days a week.
The only time I ever drink soda is when I go to a fast food restaurant.
I don't know, man. Especially, like, there's actually a syrupy
He cut down on his blizzards, though.
Yeah, he's the blizzard man. Blizzy Blee. The soda that you get at McDonald's or Wendy's or wherever, it's processed differently than soda that you would just buy out of a can.
Of course.
So
it's the mix.
It is. I actually had an ex-girlfriend who was a food scientist, and she schooled me on this. She's like...
Was she the same one who was the food dresser?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, she basically told me, it was like, you never, ever, ever want to get a Coke at a fast food restaurant. Like, anything that doesn't come in a can or a bottle, you do not want to be drinking that. It's approximately 4 times worse than regular, like, canned Coke. Just because it's...
I suspect that's true.
So you should just be cutting all the stuff out.
But whatever.
Regardless of unlimited choices.
But what I don't need is a bunch of flavor shots to, make things, unique and special to me as the snowflake that I am, that I have to be able to put lemon and strawberry into my Coca-Cola, or I feel somehow disabused. Come off of it. This is just pop machine anarchy, and it is
Aren't you the
problematic,
same
it needs to
person
go
who
away.
wants governments to step out of regulating
want
things at
government
restaurants, and
to
now they're
ban
giving
it.
you no regulations whatsoever? You can do whatever you want at a restaurant, and you're saying no.
I'm not saying it should be banned. I'm not saying it shouldn't be allowed. I'm saying it is anarchism. The people who choose to engage in this practice should feel bad about themselves because it's bad.
I'm not saying you
Coca-Cola
can't,
has
I'm
been
just saying you
perfected over the
shouldn't and you
years
should
the
feel
flavor that it
awful.
has. It doesn't need you saying, "Oh, I wonder if I put lemon and cherry in it, how it would taste." You know what? You don't need to ask that question. The answer is it's going to be worse than regular
Stop
Coke. If it
expanding your
wasn't
horizons.
if it
Stop
wasn't worse, it
thinking
would
you're
already be
anything more
invented.
than you currently are. Shut it all down and drink a Coke.
Now, to go back to this, Tim, can you tell us what your favorite flavor of Pepsi is?
Oh, well, it's not my. I mean, I don't like Pepsi at all. But of the list of Pepsis that are drinkable, Crystal Pepsi is obviously the best, and then Ginger Pepsi is in a close second. Everything else
I've
is
never even
more
heard
or
of
less
Ginger
trash.
Pepsi.
Well, Tim's experimenting when he's at these machines.
That's not a machine. You can't get Crystal Pepsi at a machine.
I've seen Crystal Pepsi in forever. I've seen Pepsi Blue in forever either.
They put no. Last year they came up with Crystal Pepsi all over again, and it was everywhere. At least at the gas stations that I buy things at, anyway, it was everywhere, and it was really good. It was nice to have it back.
Look, the gas station where Tim buys his groceries.
I'll say this. For people who are watching in the States, as most people are, you have to understand that cherry Coke is a lot less prevalent in Canada.
It
And
only comes out in the summer. You can only get it in the 500 ml bottles.
Oh, it's the McRib of sodas?
It is. You can't get it. In
so if I
cases, you
can't
get
find
it in
if I'm
bottles.
at a Coca-Cola institution and I can't get a Dr. Pepper, I want a cherry cola. These machines allow me the ability to drink a cherry cola. Why can't I have cherry cola, Tim?
Would you get
I'm
a
not saying
chick-
you
would you
can't,
ever
I'm
get a
saying-
Chicka Cherry Cola?
A cherry cola? No, I don't think so.
You need to get on your Savage Garden game.
You should have what is available without trying to these things are like creating Frankenstein's monster. The moral of that story was you can do these things, but you're playing God. Stop playing God with soda machines and drink it the way it was meant. When we grew up, there was soda out of the machine or in the can, and that's how it was, and we were happy with it. Why do the kids these days have to have all these fangled new flavors? I don't
Are you
understand
just upset that you haven't had these flavors the whole time? Like, are you jealous of today's society?
No, I think it's regress. I think
you're
it's
jealous.
it's decadence. That's the right word for it. It's wasteful decadence.
Tim hates this whole new generation of, was it King Herod? Is that his name?
King Herod?
King Herod? Wasn't he very decadent?
He was a very decadent
I'm trying to
man,
remember my
Look,
Jesus Christ Superstar.
I think
Yes, he's
normal
a- he's a
people would eat
decadent
popcorn
character,
out of a bowl and not put it on bread with mayonnaise, but that hasn't stopped you in the past.
This is not about me and my various problems. I'm speaking for the people. I'm speaking common sense to a society in desperate need of it.
Well, you threw out a term a little bit earlier. You said that if people get cherry and mix it with strawberry in their pop, they're insulting being snowflakes about the entire thing. The way that you've reacted to all of this makes you sound like a snowflake, pal.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
The snowflake believes that he or she is a special, unique character that needs to be respected and appreciated for who they. I don't believe that. I believe the world is hard, and one must be hard in turn to meet it.
I've never thought of you as hard.
Yeah.
Or hardened in any way.
Tim likes to think of himself as like a Depression-era worker as he preaches down from his ivory
Like,
towers.
someone who is hardened wouldn't be affected by these plights. Like, someone who is hardened wouldn't cry foul because Notre Dame has to play a noon game one afternoon.
Yeah, well, in some ways, I am attuned to the problems of our modern society.
Yeah, you are fucking tuned, pal. Let's get into that. Notre Dame playing a noon o'clock game. How do you feel about that, Tim?
Well, first, the idea that they would put Notre Dame on at noon is insulting.
How
That's
many
the
noon
most
games did they have
popular
last year? It
important
must have been like
school.
2 or 3.
Pardon me?
They must have had 2 or 3 noon games last season.
Not 2 or 3. If they had one, maybe. And this one is against Boston College, which is the Holy War, which further is an insult to the fact that this is going to be one of the most watched games of the year. And they put it on at noon against, Michigan versus, I don't know, Appalachian State. I don't know what garbage game they'll have.
Upset
on.
alert.
Are they starting
okay.
the year with the Holy War?
This is the Holy War. And to
I'm
put
just
it on
saying,
at
is
noon,
this game
it's
at this,
insulting.
is this at the end of the schedule as it normally is, or are they starting with them?
It's relatively early in the season. They flip around.
They
It depends
usually
whether
end
they
with
play-
USC. Usually.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
last couple years
they
they've played
end
Boston
with
College
USC every
at
second year.
Fenway.
Oh.
This year they won't because it's at Notre Dame. When they finish at USC, it's at the end of the year. Every other year, it's at the farm in Stanford.
Why does this upset you so much?
We shouldn't be playing at noon. We're not it's like the Dallas Cowboys playing 2 o'clock games. They don't play them. Why? Because they want to be
so
on. People potentially put them on at 5 o'clock when everyone sees them, or at prime time, because people want to watch them. They don't shunt them over to the least watched block. Putting Notre Dame on at noon is a slap across the face for those of us who don't want to have to, particularly in the West, have to get up and watch football at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. in order to watch the most popular team. It's just dumb.
Why do you keep referring to Notre Dame games at noon and then switching time zones when you talk about the NFL?
Saturday.
Tim gets up at 6 o'clock every morning anyway to watch Meet the Press on weekends.
I do, but I'm not speaking just about my own personal. Again, this is not all about my own private grievances. I'm grieving for others who have problems with it.
There are some people that get triggered by things that you can't talk about. Tim gets triggered about times.
I do.
Think about your privileged life, pal.
No, but imagine if they put the Warriors and Cavs on at noon on Saturday instead of a Sunday night. It's the exact same thing.
Is it the exact same thing?
Yeah, it's something that most people want to watch who are sports fans. You're putting it on an inconvenient time because God knows ESPN probably got paid off by the SEC to put on some garbage SEC game at night or something. I don't know.
Most people want to watch Notre Dame games. I don't know about that.
Like college football, yeah, it's the most popular team.
I'm not denying that
I think they're the most prevalent team. I feel like a lot of people hate Notre Dame.
Well, that's fine. I feed off other people's hate. Fine, throw it out there. They hate us because they ain't us.
Did you just reference the interview?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tim?
Talking about niche millennial things.
Again, well, one must grapple with the culture in order to consume it and then critique it.
I don't care what time Notre Dame's on.
I know you don't.
But I feel like most people don't care.
A lot of people care.
Crazy people like you.
Yeah, well, I'm not just me. You should see what the boards had to say about it.
What do the Notre Dame message boards have to say about it, Tim?
They were not pleased.
I like a good noon game every now and
voice
again.
to their complaints.
You just watch it hungover.
Yeah, you watch it hungover.
After you get back from the club, Garion, for the 8th time this week.
Yeah, well, that's what kids are doing these days.
I go twice on Saturdays.
Yeah. Go in the afternoon, then I go a bit at night.
Dame plays at noon. I go for an early club, come home, take a nap, go back to the club.
Tim thinks that going to the club is like hanging out on Jersey Shore, the most relevant thing in his life.
That's not true. And I know what it's like to go to the bars and to the clubs. And
the fact that you're going to the bars and the clubs strikes me to believe that no, you don't.
I've been out to them. I know what they're about. I know their whole scene. I don't particularly care for that whole environment.
I hate clubs, but I would go to one with Tim just to see Tim at a club.
It's too loud. You can't talk to anybody.
I agree.
Now
Clubs
the
are
drinks
the worst.
And I always suspect they're watering down my drinks and not telling me.
People just get too close. I like my personal
too
space.
Close. Too close, Father Cliff.
Yeah, it's just not my jam.
Listen, I'm fully aware that it's not your jam. It's not my jam anymore either. It was when I was 23. It's not when I'm 32. And now the money means so much more to me nowadays.
You got to get up early and watch Notre Dame games.
Yeah, I mean, how can I go to the club on a Friday night knowing that this is going to start at noon, Tim? And for you, 10 o'clock in the morning? Oh!
I mean, obviously you're not taking this complaint seriously.
See, I feel like, don't you love getting up on a Sunday and being able to watch football at 10 a.m.?
Yeah,
that was the whole amazing thing about living on the west coast of the country. And now you're complaining that you get to do that with Notre Dame.
Because when it comes to the NFL and my team, I actually want to watch as little of my NFL team as possible. When it comes to college, it's not the same thing. You don't have fantasy going on. You don't have 12 different games with fantasy implications and such. It's a wholly different. Watching football on a Saturday versus a Sunday is a wholly different experience.
Okay. I don't know if we should get into this or not, because it's just the blowback that I just don't want to have to deal with. These people are all crazy people, but just the crazy people are the worst to deal with. Mm-hmm. Tim, tell us about this Flat Earth account that you're obsessed with, because you showed it to me and I started getting obsessed with it too.
Yeah, well, I mean, most conspiracy theorists espouse theories that are like profoundly dangerous or offensive in some way, like
9/11 truthers,
9/11 truthers, or Sandy Hook truthers,
or people that think vaccines.
Truthers,
yeah.
But flat Earthism is a victimless crime. It's a victimless.
What about the people in the bottom of it that fall off?
It's fun to sort of just jump into this world of flat eartherism and just see how people are living and thinking, and the sort of like almost logical but obviously completely nonsense arguments they're pursuing. Like the Flat Earth Twitter account has photos like, here's a marble, find a way to make water stay on this marble, or the Earth is flat. Or a
Do you
photo
feel
of,
like-
of the globe where all the water is sunk to the bottom and says, if Earth was a globe, gravity would make all the water go to its lowest point, like in real life. Or like various photos of the Earth from space that they've like sliced into pieces from the different years that the photo was taken to prove that none of them are authentic, because if it was the real Earth, which was a globe, we'd all see the exact same photo every time. So like that's like the little bit of evidence they need, like those 9/11 people who like to tweet about how the melting point of steel means X or Y. Like it's like this little tiny semi-scientific point that they think proves something that can't possibly be real. It's just the Twitter account's fantastic.
Do you feel like pop machines and their unlimited options to people are a gateway to too much free thinking and having people end up on these conclusions?
Yes, is flat earthism just a product of millennial culture, Tim?
Oh, I feel like most millennials have no time for flat earthism. I feel like the people who are pursuing flat earthism are all
Kyrie
baby
Irving's
boomers or
into it.
older.
Why would you think that?
Well, every single photo or image that this account uses, for example, all look like they've been put together by somebody who's in their 50s.
So they're bad at Photoshop?
Yeah, like they're not awful at it, but they're clearly not like sophisticated at it.
All right, well, can you give some of the people the finer points of flat earthism, like penguin robots and things like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the most important points for the flat earthers is that how do you explain Antarctica? Because it's at the bottom of the Earth. Well, so their arguments tend to go, listen, why is Antarctica the only continent on Earth where no countries have, like, civilizations and development, and almost nobody goes there? Because Antarctica is just a ring around a flat Earth, and that the ice wall, like, the reason, if you ever look at a photo, like, in real life of, like, what Antarctica looks like, what you notice from the water is that Antarctica's, like, really raised, like, the cliffs are huge. Well, that's because it's all an ice wall, and that's what keeps the water on Earth from flowing off the side into outer space. And that the penguins, the reason the penguins only live at the South Pole is that original penguins were just robots which were constructed by the government, which government remains undefined, of course, but constructed by the government to keep watch over the ice walls so that no one can really figure out what's going on the edge of the world.
This is fantastic.
Also, the reason the UN flag looks like it does is an homage, is sort of like it's a tip-off to the flat earthers that the UN is aware that the Earth is actually flat and organized that way, that it isn't a globe.
So this is like Illuminati level stuff at this point.
Oh yeah, well listen, if you're going to get into if you are going to jump in with both feet to say the Earth is actually flat and the experts are lying to you, you have to assume that some secret association or society is pulling the strings, right?
What's the width of the Earth if it's flat?
That is an excellent question. I actually do not know the exact measurements, but they say if you're flying you're flying in a plane, you don't see a curved Earth in the air or curved horizons because actually it's all flat.
Shout out to Mike Cardano on this one, because he told me this. I used to live with Cardano when I moved down to the States. Yeah. And he once upon a time tried to get his pilot's license. So he was doing a whole bunch of flying. He said, the flying isn't all that difficult. He says, keeping your navigation as you go, you can get turned upside down in a plane and not even know it. He said that one of the very first times he was in there. So that would lead me to believe that, it's less flat than maybe they're saying. I don't know.
It's not flat.
I don't know, Tim. I've heard it was flat.
Flat,
or they say,
less
the
flat.
Reason that another way you can prove that the Earth isn't round is that if you look at the water in a puddle, it doesn't just keep flowing towards the sides the way it would on a sphere. The fact that water can stay still and flat in puddles or lakes is a proof that the Earth is flat. This is the level of grade 4 science thinking, where there's a little bit of logic wrapped around a whole pile of insanity.
I think you've sold me. I think the Earth is flat now. Yeah,
well, you and Kyrie Irving have a lot in common then.
I don't know if I think that's the only thing you have in common with Kyrie Irving.
I mean, I don't mind
I don't know.
Pepsi.
You both would only be able to win championships if you had an actual good player on your teams.
Oh.
Could Pat win a championship with LeBron James?
Probably.
Well, I think anybody could.
Well,
clearly not Kyrie Irving. This version of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love.
No, well, they already did.
Yeah, that's true.
Any brainwashed.
So, any more cool things from the Flat Earth account?
Oh, just various nonsensicalness about the way vacuums work in outer space and how that proves that there's no.
What is the theory you would say you're most willing to possibly believe in?
Well, before Tim jumps into that, I think my favorite anti-flat Earth thing is when they talk about things like, well, how do you know the Earth is round? It's like, well, I've seen pictures of the Earth. It's like, yeah, well, have you ever been to outer space?
then if you were to say yes,
Hey.
they'd just say, you're just in on the conspiracy then.
It's a very good way for conspiracy theorists to continue propagating the
Well, that's the
conspiracy.
key
All you have to do is find
this
one
is what you
question that
notice
has the
about
answer you
conspiracy
need it to be.
thinking, Is that if you ever take down a part of their theory, that's just because you're in on it too. And the conspiracy then just keeps growing outward to ensure that anyone who's denying it in any way is just in on it. It is a tool of the state.
I'm honestly curious, though. So, Tim, do you have... I mean, I think we've talked about conspiracies on this show before.
I will say there is one, I don't believe it, but there's one I could see being true.
Okay, and that's really what I'm looking for here. Is there one where you could at least at some point go like, oh, I can see their side of this?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm trying to rack my brain to come up with one that I think is even plausible. Why don't you go, Patrick? What do
Yes,
you have?
I will start with this one. Now, the main reason that I generally don't believe conspiracies, because mainly they're not true for the
Yes.
most part. I mean, I'm sure there are some that
The odds-on favorite is
some
they're
of the
not true.
conspiracies
If you want to be
in
right
themselves are
most
wrong.
of the
There is a
time,
criminal charge
they're
for
not true.
conspiracy, right?
So here's the thing. I mean, like vast conspiracy theories that clearly people think happened did not happen. Is that it's like the 9/11 thing. There's a lot of people out there that think that 9/11 is an inside job. I am
And
not
quite
one of the...
frighteningly, it's like intelligent people in other worlds' life, like scientists and engineers sometimes.
Well, people usually tell me they saw this thing on the internet that you really need to see.
You got to see loose change,
That's always a
man.
thought. Have you seen loose change?
But here's the thing. It's these same people also complain that their government is moronic and corrupt and everything, yet they think they can pull off this giant conspiracy. Like, imagine if there was like a conspiracy around Trump, when everything leaks out of that White House. There's not
Well,
a
this is
thing.
it, right?
There's not a thing you could say that would leak out. Yet somehow,
As a conservative, this is why I don't believe in conspiracies, because my faith in the state and in individuals to operate through the state to do things is so limited that I don't believe in
and I'm sort of on the same page with that. A lot of these conspiracies are far too vast for there to be 60,000 people to silence to be in on it that it would never come out. That makes no sense.
Yes.
That would never, ever, ever happen. The one, I don't think this is true, but I could see the original moon landing having been faked. Because that would not have taken a lot of people to silence, and you could have done it in a studio with no one really watching.
I saw a great, again, on this Twitter account, I think they retweeted this photo of Richard Nixon on a phone talking to people on the moon, but then saying he can call the moon in 1969 from 30,000 miles away, but I can't make my cell phone work in my basement.
Well, that's really the thing, right? It's that we
there's
at some
something-
point in
there's
the
some logic
60s,
to that,
before
but
we
it's
had
also
personal
clearly
computers in our
crackers.
home, like we're able to somehow put not only just shoot men into space, but then have the technology to have them chill there for a little while and then come back.
Listen, I mean, the reason that all of that stuff happened, one, I mean, you have the Cold War, you want to beat the Soviets, but the reason that we have the devices that we have today is because of that.
Is because, and again, I'm with you. I think it happened. I'm not going to say it didn't happen. But when you do sometimes just sit and look at it for a second.
And that's the thing. I think that is the one plausible one that could have been
I'll give you
faked.
one that I think is actually pseudo-plausible, I suppose. I don't know that I believe it. Let's say like Area 51 in Roswell with aliens. There have been enough people who've claimed, I mean, I don't believe in aliens, but it's not impossible to think that there would be extraterrestrial creatures. I mean, we're from Nova Scotia. One of the most famous saucer viewings in human history happened at Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia. I mean, there are lots of people who have no financial reason to say they saw aliens who say they saw them. So, and if the government were to capture a flying saucer, in theory, I suppose they would put on the full court press to prevent people from finding out. So while I don't believe it, I think that it's plausible. Like there's a 5% chance that these aliens have been covered up by the state.
Imagine if the aliens landed and all they wanted was avocado toast and spoons full of Nutella.
That would still be a more enjoyable movie than Alien Covenant.
You didn't like Alien Covenant?
No, I mean, it's better than Prometheus. But
I love
that's
Prometheus.
not saying much.
I haven't seen the new Alien yet.
Do you have any conspiracy theories outside of the moon landing that you want to dig into?
I was gonna bring up the moon landing, but I don't think there's any that I really...
I watched this conspiracy... It's not a conspiracy documentary. It's about The Shining. It's called... What's the room in The Shining?
Oh, yeah, right.
Room 237,
yeah, 202,
I think.
222.
But the socks and the floor...
Whatever it is, it's five like crazy internet people's 5 different takes on what The Shining is actually about. It's fascinating. It's all ludicrous.
Yeah,
but it's very
there's
the guy
very...
who wrote the book
When you dissect
what it's
Kubrick, it does get very, very interesting sometimes.
But one of them
But
is...
it's not Kubrick's idea. Ask Stephen King. It's his idea.
Yeah, but part of it is just how much that Kubrick hates Stephen King and hated the source material, and that's why he changed some of the stuff. And some of the
because Kubrick, while a wonderful director, it doesn't have as much creativity in his little finger as Stephen King has. in his
Oh
whole
yeah,
plot.
but it's just the decisions he made and the differences that point to certain things and like the clues he
Yeah,
left.
and one of the conspiracies is that the moon landing was faked by Stanley Kubrick. That's why 2001 looked so realistic at the time, and that The Shining was just a hidden message telling the people that he did fake the moon landing through these like really weirdly secret things hidden in the background. It's really insane. It's well worth a watch. I gotta look up what the name of that is.
Kings of Kong.
You know, Kings of
Kong
Kong.
is a great
I think
documentary.
I think it's my favorite documentary ever.
The guy who directed the new Baywatch movie, which was so shocking to me.
What?
Really?
Yeah, that same guy.
Also, I've heard nothing good about that movie. We'll still watch it. at some point.
I just like The Rock so much. Room 237. I think I was right on that. Room 237.
That sounds right.
Yes, that is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick's film adaptation.
Speaking of interesting culty films, I just for the first time saw like the cast list for the Room movie that's coming out. Very excited. And apparently it performed very well at festivals.
I'm excited to hear that because, I mean, when that movie comes out, we should almost do a live podcast where we sit down and watch The Room with everyone else that has never seen it.
Yeah, we watch The Room first together, and then we'll go watch that movie.
That could be an experience. If anyone out there hasn't seen The Room, the world's worst movie, you really should.
And I would even say if you have the interesting and very I would say jealousy-evoking opportunity to watch The Room for the first time at a Room screening,
Do it.
do that.
I've been to late night, midnight showings of The Room.
It's but I'm just saying if you get to do it as your first time and the lunacy that's happening in those theaters, it's fantastic.
Yeah, Tim,
Gary would know this as a aficionado of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. He knows about midnight showing.
I've been to a few midnight showings of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. My fiance is a huge fan of Rocky Horror.
Do you dress up?
I didn't dress up. She did.
That movie is very overrated.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I get why people like it, though.
Oh yeah,
I don't think can it be overrated though? I think it's just people don't ever really talk about how much of a quality film it is.
Well,
they just say it's
Put it this way. It's
like the cult film.
It's overrated by people who really, really love it, but to the rest of the world, no one cares.
Yeah.
Like, they've never seen it.
I just don't think I've ever had it sold to me as like, oh my god, you have to see this movie. Its quality is so
That's a fair
high. It's just you have to see this movie. It's an experience.
It's one of those films that people will not tell you to watch it or not watch it until they know you a little bit.
Yeah.
And think that maybe this meshes up with, like, sort of the weirdness that you would like.
Yeah.
Now, it feels like it should be in my wheelhouse for, like, weird stuff that I like. It's just not.
Yeah.
You're saying you don't like to go to movies where people throw toast at the screen?
I mean, I go to movies where people throw spoons at the
Spoon!
screen. Like, bring it full circle. At the Room screenings, you just throw spoons at the screen instead, or throw a football back and forth with each other.
I lost my football one night. It was worth it though.
No, definitely worth it. You go buy like a Nerf ball,
Yeah.
work out just as fine. Tim, do you have any cult movies? Because I still think my favorite cult movie, because it is one of my favorite movies, is Spinal Tap. Like, people haven't seen Spinal Tap, which is
Is that
crazy.
is that a cult movie?
Yeah, Spinal Tap is a cult movie.
Like, so are all the Christopher Guest movies cult movies then?
Well, Spinal Tap is probably the biggest. I mean, that's not technically a Christopher Guest movie. It's a Rob Reiner movie.
yes,
Christopher
but of
Guest,
course he's one of the main characters.
Christopher Guest movies came along 2 decades later, and there was a string of them. But, like, people haven't seen those movies. If you go
So would
look
you
up
say there's more people that know those characters from that one Simpsons episode than that actual movie?
Potentially.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, it's been passed around. It's like...
The Splash Show.
My vision.
Good night, Brungfell. There shall be no encore.
But, like, Spinal Tap's been passed around enough that people have seen it.
Yeah.
But it's not, like, a widely seen thing.
No.
And then when you start getting into Best in Show or Waiting for Guffman or A Mighty Wind, like, people have just...
A Mighty Wind is very funny.
Home for
but,
Durham.
put it this way, if you've seen... I mean, well, it wasn't called Home for Porn. It was called
No, it's
For Your
not called. I
Consideration.
can't remember what the heck
that
it
one
is.
was,
That's what it's about.
that was the worst one of the 4. But
Totally.
if people have seen one of them, they've seen all of them.
Yeah.
So it's not like people are just popping in and out of the Christopher Guest world.
True.
That's a very fair point.
But, like, Spinal Tap is... I mean, my rating scale for movies is obviously way different than everyone else. I'd put it as top 5 comedy ever.
Well, in some ways, because it like inaugurates a whole genre of movie making. For nothing else, it deserves to be that high.
I wouldn't even say it fostered a new wave of movie making. I would say it was, I mean, I think Fellini did movies, like mockumentary-style movies, before Spinal Tap came
Sure, it
around.
really is the premier mockumentary.
And it fostered the new wave of TV
yeah.
that we see over, let's say, movies. Because there haven't really been a lot of mockumentary movies. You have all the guest ones, you have Borat, and a whole bunch of crappy ones. But, like, Arrested Development is shot documentary style. You know what I
The
mean?
Office.
The Office is shot the same way. Parks and Rec is shot the same way. So I feel like it may have had a bigger influence on TV than maybe movies.
Okay, I think I buy that argument.
Does anyone know why, to really branch off, just because you mentioned Arrested Development and Ron Howard, I've been trying to figure this out. Does anyone know why?
Oh, Tim's big on
Don't
this.
even get
Why
me started on this.
why Lloyd and Miller got thrown off of the Han Solo movie to bring in
Are
Ron
you
Howard?
just trying to get me worked up?
No,
or...
Garion doesn't know about how much
I
you
don't-
hate this.
Yeah, what?
Oh, I'm so
what side of
angry
this are
about
you
this.
on?
Kathleen Kennedy only knows about good movies because she happened to be lucky enough to hang around with Spielberg. On her own, I'm very skeptical about her. She was probably the one who encouraged him to make the Flintstones movie and encouraged him to make War of the Worlds. Like, that just seems like what her influence on his film choice would be.
Well, you realize there's no basis for that whatsoever. You're just projecting that onto her.
Sure, okay. But look at the movie. Lord and Miller have, unlike her, actually been creative and made movies on their own, which are pretty good.
Yeah, I'm
21
saddened by
Jump
this
Street
news.
is
I was looking forward to
hilarious.
seeing what they were going to do with
Nah,
this.
they peaked at Clone High.
Which is not a bad thing to peak
at.
at.
It's an objectively funny movie. I've never talked to a single soul who's seen that movie and said anything bad about it.
Lego movie?
The Lego movie's really
I agree.
smart.
Yeah.
I
It's a
love
really
Lego movie.
intelligent movie, the way it's constructed. 22 Jump Street for a sequel is actually pretty funny. I never saw Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but I know people, particularly people who have kids, who say that's actually a really, really
It's a
good
fine
movie. So these people
animated
know
film.
what they're doing, and I am skeptical that Mrs. Kennedy doesn't, and I'll trust Lord Miller over her. And they bring Ron Howard in to do a Star Wars movie. That is going to be
Seems like
so
a mismatch.
awful. It'll just be, what, Apollo 13 with Han Solo involved? Like, oh, come on.
Well, here's the thing that you have to understand about these movies. They don't want to take a bath on any of these movies. They
They can't take a bath on them.
They could.
They could run a blank screen for 3 hours, and it would make $900 million.
So speaking to that point, there is, from their perspective and how big of a cash cow that the Star Wars franchise is for Disney, that they don't want to step too far out of the boundaries to maybe make something a bit weird. Well, we would probably love it as us.
Yeah.
The majority of people want something a bit more conservative and cookie cutter, which I'm frankly shocked that you're not all about, Tim. So you bring in two people that have a lot of experience making big budget movies and making sure that for the most part that they do not go wrong.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair.
So you bring in the Shepherds with this, and listen, Ron Howard is probably not the
Running
greatest.
Colin Trevorrow to do the next real Star Wars, and he's done nothing but wasted his money on movies.
No, I mean, well, Trevorrow did what? He did the last Jurassic Park, did he not?
Yeah, and that was okay.
Yeah, but he
But I'm just saying,
showed,
but he made money on that franchise.
and he showed that he could handle a gigantic budget movie, make money off of it, and make it so it's watchable. Like
All right,
there's
fair
so
enough. Maybe I'm wrong on
there
him
is
then.
so
Okay.
much money to be lost simply from the production element and not going, because you go over budget on a Star Wars movie, you're not
Yeah.
$3 million over budget.
No.
You're now $300 million over budget.
Just curious, because I know, was it the Black Panther trailer came out a couple days ago, and that's like a Ryan Coogler Marvel movie, which could be really cool.
Great googly moogly.
Great Coogler Moogly.
Anyway, that would be my thought process on why Ron Howard is now
Yeah.
directing.
I get.
Oh,
I
he's
just
a
wasn't.
safe
I wasn't
choice,
sure
don't
if
get
there
me
was a
wrong, he's a
definitive
safe
reason
choice,
that
but
is
I think
broken
Lord Miller
as to
know what
why they
they're
were
doing.
fired.
I agree that Lord and Miller probably know what they're doing, but they ended up seeing the finalized script of this and being like, you know what, this isn't exactly what we want.
Yeah. Okay.
You think they
Again,
left
I was
on
just
their
kind
own
of fishing
accord
if there
from
was
a
an
Star Wars
actual
movie? I don't think so.
like an exhibit A. This was the definitive breaking point of why they got fired. So
Well,
it just sort of like popped up. It's like, oh, I didn't even hear that they were in like a turmoil situation.
Well, is Donald Glover playing Lando in that movie?
yes.
So they probably just wrote him like his character from Tim's most hated show, Atlanta.
I've never seen the show. I have no opinions on it.
You hate it.
I have no opinions on it. I haven't seen it.
Well, the last time we talked about it, it was your least favorite show of all time.
No, I mean, I'm sure it has to be overrated, but I have
I'm
not seen
sure
it.
it must be worse than
It
it's
must be
been
worse than
perceived
because
to be.
people are
I-
talking about it like it's
I think it's
I
groundbreaking,
loved
and
it.
I'm
It's a
dubious
great
about
show.
it, but I haven't seen it, so I have no
I'll say
actual
he's
views.
definitively the worst character on his own show, but I think he kind of meant to write it
I
that
think
way.
that's how he writes it.
yeah.
Anyway, that'll do it for Volume 5 of CUST Corner.
CUST Corner, it's CUST Corner. CUST Corner, it's CUST Corner. He's got the hottest takes with the highest stakes. He should be president of the United States, but it's CUST Corner, it's CUST Corner. CUST Corner, hee 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 hee.
It's not my name. Well, next time we come back, I can give a couple of movie reviews, because I've seen some movies recently I got some hot takes about.
Give me a 10-word review on the last movie you saw.
I just watched Kong Skull Island.
Is that your review? I watched.
You got 4 words left.
It's on the poster. 5 stars. I watched it. Cast.
Kong is 100,000 stories tall, and it ruins the entire movie, and he's the least interesting animal on the island.
That's too many words, sir. You're just jealous. He's a big man, and you're not.
Not
well,
enough
I found out that the whole
Jack Black.
purpose of the movie is just a setup for Kong versus Godzilla, which also angered me that I wasted my time watching a setup movie. But anyway.
Well, they have the, like, in the sort of, like, everything has to be a world now in movies. You know, they're doing these, like, the Mummy movie was just a precursor for they're doing all these, like, monster movies now.
Yeah, that's only because Universal owns all the rights to the mummies, to,
That's
like,
correct.
Dracula
Yeah.
and all that. But they need to
They
get
bought all these
they
new
need-
rights,
They
yeah.
need to get some money out
Who
of
was
them.
asking for that?
I'm just mad it's Tom Cruise and not Brendan Fraser. And Tim's upset that Russell Crowe's too fat in the movie.
Well, I mean, he couldn't be any less funny than he was in The Nice Guys.
That's one of
It's
your
a really,
worst takes
it's a really
ever.
good movie.
It's not a good movie.
You're
It
the
would be good
only
if he wasn't
person
in
that
it.
I've met that has seen that movie that doesn't like it.
Okay, well, whatever.
Cast! You're cast! That was Tim Andercust!
Tim Andercust.
Not Cast, it's not my name. I bring the funny at Tim Anderson87.
Garion Thorne, where can people follow you on Twitter?
At Garion Thorne.
Is the rotation, which you're on every day on the Fantasy Sports Network, anything like CUST Corner?
No. There was one
This is like
comment
the best thing
I
on the
saw a couple
internet
weeks
these
ago that was
days.
just like, is it okay that I like Garion more when he's not next to Pat? Like, probably.
I feel like you're in more of your
I'm a
element
little more serious in just using numbers there.
in talking about baseball,
Talking about baseball.
not conspiracy theories
Conspiracy theories? No.
or conspiracies, as I like to spell it.
Yeah.
I had it on my wall one time.
Please.
It was like Claire from Homeland. The first time I went to his place in Toronto, he just had stuff on the walls like Claire's board.
I was convinced that there was a conspiracy with Sidney Rice that they didn't tell us or didn't talk about his injury because I kept him in my keeper league, and that's how they were
No,
going to suck
the
Brett
reason was
Favre
that that's
back.
how they were going to
Sidney
coax
Rice.
Brett Favre
Wow.
back
out of
retirement.
retirement to come back and play for the Vikings by not telling him how bad Sidney Rice was actually injured. I still believe that to be true.
And I'm the crazy one. Kind of wish I had said at the end, and I'm the crazy one, because that's the sort of clip that could be taken out of context in a way I wouldn't appreciate.
Even better.
Yeah, that's not great. Wish I hadn't said. I feel like Milhouse when he says to Lisa, "What's a big sister for?" I wish I hadn't said that. Oh my God, Kong Skull Island is bad.
We're still recording.
Oh, are we? Because you said, well, it's,
But you
whatever,
said
it's bad.
goodbye.
You said
This isn't
goodbye.
a live
I was
show,
able to-
Tim.
What?
This isn't a live show.
I know, but you said goodbye, so I assumed it was over. It's just, I'm so angry that I wasted my time streaming this movie.
How can you really waste your time when you're streaming a movie?
It was bad.
I
It was a bad
guess.
movie. And I said, Kong is the least interesting animal on the whole island.
He fights like dinosaurs, doesn't he?
Dinosaurs and these big, massive, like, yaks or whatever they are.
Yaks! Yakety yak, Tim!
And John C. Reilly talks about these massive ants that are on the island, too, although we never see them. He and John Goodman are the only redeeming parts of the whole movie.
Well, John Goodman does star in Tim's favorite film, King Ralph.
King Ralph is hilarious. Like, it is a laugh-a-minute comedy. It's a slapstick. I really thoroughly enjoy that movie.
See, that movie would just be better if it was John C. Reilly playing Reed Rothschild when he's super coked out trying to talk to Godzilla or King Kong.
Well, this is what I'm concerned
How
about.
much do you lift?
King Kong
We'll
versus
say it on the count of
Godzilla
3.
is the next movie. How in the name of God is King Kong going to defeat a lizard that breathes fire? How are they going to make a movie out of that? I mean, they're going to, and I'm going to go see it. But that doesn't mean I think it's going to be believable. They had to make, I looked this up, they had to make King Kong in this movie like 1,000 times bigger than he is in the original movie, which is actually really good, the original, to make this whole universe of Kong and Godzilla work out.
You know who likes the original versions of things?
Like the
Millennials.
1933 I don't know why I keep saying Hong Kong. The 1933 version of King Kong, like he's big, but he's not the size he is on Kong Skull Island.
Well, maybe he was the same size. It's just Fay Ray was really small.
No, because he's like the size of a building in this movie.